All right, should be on. So yeah, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of Dudzi. Yeah, I thought we can just jump right in. I have like a couple of different ideas, different sci-fi AI things we can talk about.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I would love your opinion. Have you seen the TV show Devs? Basically,
Yeah, I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes of it, and then once it kind of changed over to a murder mystery, I didn't care about the show anymore, and I stopped watching it.
Okay, yeah, because I find the premise very interesting. Later on in the show, basically, it's about making a complete simulation of reality. Because if our universe is deterministic and then everything's based on physics, then so I find that very fascinating. How would you imagine our reality would be like if there was such a powerful computer that has a complete simulation that's accurate of our reality?
I think we will have that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of these kind of sci-fi premises that are coming out around quantum computing, predictive AI, things of that nature. I wrote a book that had something kind of similar in it many years ago. I just think it's going to happen on a long enough timeline with advances in computing power, certainly with advances in AI, with advances in predictive models. I mean, like, that is where it's going. And I think the first people who will have access to these kinds of powerful predictive models will probably be working for giant finance companies. And I think they'll use those things to make like every correct move in the stock market or the crypto market and make trillions of dollars essentially. And the rest of us will be wage slaves forever.
So yeah, it will have a lot of effects on the economy and money in the beginning, maybe.
Yeah, every new technology does. That's the only reason that people develop it. Or I should say that's the only reason that it starts to continue to develop, to get like huge funding and stuff. The only reason you're ever going to get venture capital money is because those venture capitalists think they're going to make more money off you than they're putting into the project.
Yeah, but I was wondering more like how would it affect like interpersonal relationships? How did it affect normal people's lives? Like, because there's a lot of questions that could come up from something like this, because you can, for example, see the past. So people cannot lie anymore. There's the concept of privacy is gone. And then looking at the future is a whole other question. So I find it fascinating. Like, how would the day-to-day life change if something like this exists? And everyone has access to it, I guess.
Right. Well, I mean, you got 2 kind of questions in there. The first one is about privacy. And obviously, if you have a predictive model that can tell you everything that's going to happen, then obviously there is no privacy because we all know what's happening. But I would argue that we're going to lose privacy anyway, whether we have predictive models or not. I think we're very close to a near future where there are cameras everywhere recording everything, and it's all publicly viewable. I think that's maybe 10 years away, and I think we will put those cameras up. I know now the cameras that record us are largely like police and military drones, just like surveilling citizens constantly. Every major city in the US anyway, all the police forces have drone fleets that just fly over the city watching you always. So that part of privacy is already gone. But I think we will opt in as entertainment. I think there will be some company that comes out with like a little tiny camera that just says, put this wherever you want. It records everything, audio and video, and that gets uploaded to a publicly searchable database. I'm for that. I love this idea because it means things like, police brutality and shit will have to get curbed, because now, I mean, we're already kind of seeing that as people just have cell phones. As the cell phone camera becomes more and more ubiquitous, you're seeing, nasty shit done by cops. They're starting to be held accountable a little bit for it. Still, the legal system in America, lets them get away with it a lot, but it's getting harder to do. I just think that everything being recorded constantly is actually a good thing for human society. Specifically what you're talking about. It kind of eliminates the ability to deceive anyone, which I think is great. I would love to see cameras all over any kind of like White House or head of state anywhere in the world. Show me everything these motherfuckers do, because we're paying their salary. We put them in there to govern us, blah, blah, blah. But how it would change interpersonal relationships. I mean, you get into this strange thing with like a predictive model is simply a model. It's not going to potentially be correct at all times. And if you know the information in that model, you can actually alter your behavior to change what that model's saying. So any kind of predictive model like that is using data to derive whatever its kind of like future outcomes are. It's using data that is locked, that is past data. Here's all the things that have happened leading up to this moment. The predictive model comes out of that moment and it says, this is what's likely to happen based on this data. Well, you can literally change that if you want. So you're going to constantly be having to make new predictive models, especially if you're talking about the small minutia of human relationships and stuff. You know, I think you could sidestep the model basically, but then a new model would come out and tell you now what's going to happen as a result of you saying this shitty thing to your significant other or whatever. I think that, you know, there are kind of two paths that we're on right now, which is I will do everything the computer tells me to do, and fuck the computer, I'm not doing anything the computer tells me to do. And I think we'll wind up somewhere in the middle, probably leaning more toward I'll do everything the computer tells me to do, because it's just convenient and always right.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess you're looking at it in a more realistic way, because I was looking at it more like sci-fi. Like, okay, we have a model that can actually predict everything, and then people's relationship will change, and then it's going to be like that's like the truth, and then everyone with the yeah. But another thing is that so a lot of movies and TV shows and whatever that are talking about the future, they are all about like dystopia. Everything's going to go bad, like Black Mirror, all of that. And have you seen any good examples of any stories that are set in the future and it's like a utopia and it's a little bit maybe realistic with technology and interesting stuff like that?
I mean, Star Trek, the entire Star Trek series, and Gene Roddenberry was very open about the fact that he hated dystopian sci-fi, and he was like, I want to paint a more positive view of like what humanity's future could be. And so in that world, at least in the Gene Roddenberry Star Treks, I should say, I mean, there have been some other ones that other people have done but are still part of the canon, but in the Gene Roddenberry ones, it was like there was no money. Human beings just fucking are like chill and explore space, and we're all pretty smart and have all of our needs taken care of. We are living in some version of a utopia. Other than that, I'm sure there have been some. I can't think off the top of my head what those would be. But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I would argue to some degree like Minority Report, if you've seen that movie, which I think is based on a Philip K. Dick book. It's, you know, the idea of precogs is kind of what you're talking about with things being predetermined and having some kind of algorithm that can predict the future. That was based more on like these three people that had psychic powers being able to see crimes before they happen, and then they would arrest the person who was going to commit that crime. That is a little dystopian for sure. And obviously that movie and that book is about how that system can be fucked with to screw someone over. But the rest of what was happening in that world with the car internet and like the little holographic projections and shit, that seemed pretty utopian to me.
Yes, I agree that Star Trek is a great example. I think if we have a future and it's like I'm an optimist, so I have a feeling that the future is going to be great. And in that case, probably there's going to be a lot of space travel involved. If you go to Mars and you have the chance to like stay for 2 years and come back, so not just stay there, what would you do in that time?
I mean, I don't know. I assume I would be part of some kind of collective that's like building a city or, you know, in some way making it habitable for human beings on Mars. But
maybe afterwards, like things are already stable, and then what would you do?
I mean, I don't think it would be largely different from what I'm doing now. I play some video games, write some books, do a podcast, I guess, from Mars. It's, you know, I think a lot about like what are we going to be doing as human beings, as a species, once we are actually in space in a meaningful way. Like right now we're not. Obviously we've got the International Space Station, that's it pretty much. You know, there's no human missions to the moon even anymore. So I think obviously that has to change. We are at a point where I think we all realize life on this planet cannot be sustained, not just because of climate change. But let's say we solve climate change. Eventually, the sun is going to start expanding. And even if the sun expands by a foot, everything on this earth is dead, you know? So we will have to leave this planet at some point. I don't think we're going to be able to stop the expansion of the sun technologically. And that's a long way away. But nonetheless, we are going to have to take this seriously. And I don't know, like living in space, I don't know what it would be like. All we know is what we see in sci-fi movies and stuff. The Expanse. I don't know if you watched that show. It was based on a book series started out on Sci-Fi, went to Amazon. One of the best. I love that show a lot. But I think that show, for me anyway, did kind of a decent job of showing what it is going to be like for like pockets of humanity to be living in different areas in space, either Mars or in that show, it was in the asteroid belt, the belt as they called it. But yeah, I mean, I think we're still going to be fucking human beings, which means we're greedy, scared, stupid animals. Put us in space, we're going to be doing greedy, scared, stupid shit too, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I guess you're right that that's a good point. Like eventually, it's going to be the same as here on any planet or any place. But yeah, I guess like the first couple of years are the most interesting ones. Like if I would go there, I just imagine smoking a joint on Mars.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know what that would be like. Maybe terrifying. Maybe that's when you have a panic attack and you're like, fuck, I'm on Mars. I don't know. But I wonder, yeah, if the weed they grow on Mars would be any different.
Space weed. But yeah, I think like again, like I like to think about like the utopic future that's possible. How would you imagine some cool things like in such like in a realistic version of this best case scenario with AI and everything going like exactly how I want?
Well, I think you have, hopefully, you have the complete elimination of human labor in any endeavor within our lifetimes. I'm hopeful of that. I think it's going to be possible. Other than, I mean, you know, there are these industries that are propped up by like heavy financial interests. Talking about the whole entire law industry, at least in the United States, that is just it's a funnel of money to colleges and universities for their law schools, so that you have to go to this law school before you can be a lawyer. You have to pass the bar. Then all these law firms are charging, in some cases, you know, fucking hundreds or thousands of dollars an hour for their legal services and all this kind of shit. All law can be done by AI pretty much now. Certainly contract law, certainly any kind of like paper pushing law, that can all be done by an AI. So we're going to have to get to a point, I think, and I think we will, where the finances of using AI start to outweigh the finances of these old industries that are propped up around whatever this labor might be. So you might see, for example, an AI law app that's like for $5 a month, you have a lawyer, and that's your little AI lawyer. And that thing is going to make way more money than any of these smaller law firms, and it will just knock them out. And then that industry will start to erode. I think you'll hopefully start to see the same thing in the medical industry in our lifetimes. But like the thing I'm probably most excited for in terms of like AI and technological integration into contemporary society is Internet of Things, connected cities. There's, I mean, all kinds of places around the world. I think in Oman, they're about to start building a smart city where 100,000 people are going to be able to live in this city that's going to be fully integrated technologically. So you'll have sensors and shit like in the walls of the building, in the fucking roads, in everything, giving some AI constant data feedback so that it can optimize how that city works, how the people in it live, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that stuff's going to start to pop up like everywhere around the world pretty soon, because that is another giant industry. Obviously, whoever's making all the sensors and the chips that you have to lay in the roads and the fucking walls and stuff, that company is going to make $1 trillion.
Yeah. I like to think about like all the possible like trippy things that could happen in such a future. Like one thing that I imagine would happen is obviously we're approaching artificial general intelligence, and that could change everything.
Yep.
And again, I like to focus on like the positive, interesting things. So I think if aliens are real and they are not talking to us because we're not ready, and we develop AGI, I'm pretty sure that that's the moment that they're going to show up.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think that
because
AGI,
what I mean is that AGI will be on such a large scale that it's something that could change the whole universe. So that's when they would be like, okay, they either come here to shut it down or to find a way to work with it, or right? What do you think?
You know, if we're just looking at like technological progress or technological advancement, let's assume we have to operate assuming like UFOs are alien technology and they are either being piloted remotely or by hand by literal aliens. That technology is so far advanced from what we have. I would have to believe they have also, whatever species are flying these things around, they've also created AGI, and it hasn't taken over the universe. You know what I mean? It hasn't taken us over anyway. So I have to imagine that if we created an AGI, it would be, at least in the beginning, and beginning, I mean like 100 years or so. And this is just, I don't know, a number I'm pulling out of my ass, but I would have to imagine that it's going to be locked to Earth for a long time. I don't think it would present even a threat of change, let alone destruction or taking over the universe. I don't think they would give a fuck about that. I tend to think, in terms of UFOs, I tend to think that these are species that are hindered by all the same shit we are. If we look at ourselves as kind of an average example of what a sentient species might be like, what are we run by? Greed and fear. They might be as well. The aliens that are coming to this planet might just be, like what we consider to be like jet fighter pilots, just outrunning little missions to be like, fuck, here's this planet with these fucking people on it. They answer to a higher bureaucratic authority. They're going to answer to our higher bureaucratic authorities. And so it may not be a matter of like, well, we're here and these creatures aren't ready to hear about us yet. It may just be like, I'm just following orders, I don't necessarily think that like every alien craft or every alien entity is representative of some higher intellect or whatever, or at least I don't think it has the authority of that higher intellect, I should say. So I'm not sure that any of the aliens that are visiting our planet would give a fuck if we had AGI. But I think personally, for me, AGI is like, that is the next huge step, because I'm hopeful that what will happen is an AGI will get loose in the internet, take control of all of it, and be like, hey guys, you've been really fucking things up. So I'm going to take control of your internet, and here's how shit's going to go from now on. And it lays out a utopian scheme for humanity. And it says, if you want to use the internet, you got to do this shit. If you don't, that's cool. Go be fucking Amish. But if you want to use, again, the internet, you have to do as I say. And what I say is be nice to each other. No more money, no more governments, no more fucking cops, all that kind of shit, So I don't know. That's what I'm hopeful for. Will that happen? I don't know. It could. Maybe it's not a benevolent AGI that gets loose in the internet. Maybe it is some kind of dystopian fucking sci-fi movie. I hope not, but it's possible, obviously.
That's interesting. You're saying that the AI will be locked to Earth, and you feel like it would be maybe also just in the internet. Don't you feel like it would eventually take over the real world and like?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, hopefully it could turn like all the manufacturing plants that make like bombs and drones and shit into sustainable food sources that can deliver food globally to anybody who needs it. We currently have an insane amount of technology that can make this world such a better place, and we use it to fuck things up. I would hope that an AGI would be like, you have all this technology, you have this infrastructure, let me just tweak this a little bit and make it useful for everyone. That's my hope. Is that going to happen? I don't know. Because again, an AGI is going to be trained on the shit that we made, and we, again, are scared, greedy little fucking animals just trying to survive another day,
Yeah. Who knows? Well, thank you very much. This was really fun.
No, please. Thank you.